So this is exactly what I mean when I say that multiple topics over the past few weeks have been placed on the back burner and just pushed forward. Because there are so many things going on in the National Hockey League that there are always new topics, always new video ideas, oh, the playoffs are going on, oh, there's a new trade rumor, this, that, and the other thing. And so now, we have ourselves a conversation that I actually wanted to talk about a few weeks ago, but never got around to doing so until today. We're heading over onto a segment of Canuck Central with Dan Riccio and Bick Nazar, because what they did was they talked about the Vancouver Canucks' most expensive player. Not Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but JT Miller. And they discussed JT in the context that compares him with another JT. The Golden Boy himself, the Game 6 overtime winner against Tampa Bay, John Tavares. And what the folks on the 650 show go out there and talk about is this idea that JT Miller is actually better than John Tavares. The quote in the tweet video says this: "I'd rather have JT Miller than Johnny T. JT's peak has been higher, actually, than Tavares's." Attached is a video of Riccio and Nazar going out there and talking about the thing. It's 5 minutes long. So if you have some time, you have a few extra minutes to spare, you kind of want to, I don't know, throw something on while you're cooking or whatever, you can listen to this Canuck Central segment. It's going to be linked in the description below. But because this is a very intriguing idea, just in general, I wanted to throw my hat into the ring and just give my opinions about this idea too, breaking down what it is that I look for when talking about this. Now, of course, the Sportsnet segment is so long, it's 5 minutes, so they do kind of cover everything that you need to go over. And with that in mind, I wanted to go out there and explore things in my own way. So if anybody watches the video and then watches this video, it's like, oh, you're kind of repeating the same things. Yeah, well, they talked about everything you need to talk about. So either way, let's go over to both of these players and compare their contract, their age, their performance, and the numbers as well. JT Miller is the younger of the two. He is 30 years old. He had turned 30 back on March 14th. John Tavares is turning 33 before the start of the 23-24 season. In terms of their builds, JT is 6'1", 218. Tavares is 6'1", 212. They both play center left wing, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, these guys are really similar in most aspects physically, just with JT having those extra 3 years on John Tavares. Tavares is making $11 million a year till the end of 2025 with a full no-move clause. JT Miller has a full no-move clause kicking in the next few days over here. He's making $8 million a year till the end of 2030. So John Tavares, his contract goes on till he's going to be, 36 years old? JT Miller's contract goes on until he's 37, I believe. So ultimately, these are really similarly structured deals. It's just, of course, John Tavares making $3 million more per year than JT Miller gives the edge to Miller in a very slight way. Then you go over onto the way these guys produce. John Tavares in this most recent season had 80 points in 80 games played, 36 goals, and 44 assists. JT Miller, on the other hand, had 82 points in 81 games, 50 assists, 32 goals. So while Tavares had more goals, JT had the edge in assists. So very similar seasons for both of these guys, very close in terms of the numbers. But what really stands out to me about this comparison is the fact that last year, John Tavares had 76 points in 79 games played, so under a point per game. You could see this trend heading back over to the 2020 days. He has been under a point per game with Toronto for a while. JT Miller, though, last year had 99 points, 32 goals, 67 assists in 80 games played. He was, for all intents and purposes, a 100-point player. Had he just played the last 2 games, he would have gotten to that mark. JT Miller has also had a little bit better of a production standpoint than John Tavares, with the exception of the Canadian division weird year where everybody was sick on the Vancouver Canucks. Miller is younger, Miller is cheaper, and Miller produces similar to more points than John Tavares. And at this point, if you compare everything together, it's easy to see why the folks on Sportsnet 650 would say that they'd rather have JT Miller than John Tavares on their hockey team. Now, this conversation has not really incorporated too much of the intangibles, temperament. That stuff definitely favors Tavares, I would say. Not necessarily because John Tavares is a good person and JT Miller is a bad person, but just because there's a lot more that you need to adjust yourself to when it comes to JT Miller than with John Tavares. Tavares, in my eyes, and based off of what everybody else talks about this guy, he is a leader, he stands up for his team, he says the right things, he does the right things, and he's got that captain-worthy material personality. JT Miller, on the other hand, I don't think too many Canucks fans would want him to be the captain, mostly because of the temper that he does show. Not because Miller is just an angry fool going out there and getting pissed off at everybody, but because JT's super eager and passionate desire to win sometimes clouds over his play in the worst way possible. We know JT is a gamer. It's why a lot of people that have coached him and have had the experience of playing with him absolutely love the guy. He is a team player. He wants to win. He will never back down. But there are so many moments where JT's temperament gets the best of him and he goes out there, yells at his goalie, yells at his teammates, yells out profanities as he's skating off into the bench, and compiled with the lack of back-checking on some of these plays too, it makes for a combination that says that, yeah, John Tavares is probably the more vanilla and more widely acceptable personality to have on your hockey team versus JT Miller's, wherein you do need to understand where he's coming from to really see the value in what he brings. And I guess you could say that aspect of the conversation is all personal preference. Like, what would you rather have on your team in terms of a personality? What do you value more? The eager desire to win that is unwavering and indominant, to say the least, or John Tavares' more acceptable and widely received leadership style that has carried him as the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs the past few years? Does that give such an edge to Tavares, in your opinion, that it overshadows all the other things like Tavares making more money and him being older and him producing the same to fewer points than JT Miller does year by year? You could say for JT Miller that because he was playing with some really good players that he was able to get all those inflated numbers, but honestly, I'd say that for JT, sure, even though he is like every other pass in the power play, which is how he gets so many assists and secondary assists, he is one of the more just straight up good Vancouver Canucks when it comes to being able to force results. His playmaking is really solid, his goal scoring is as well, he just always knows how to find the back of the net. And you can say all the same things about John Tavares too, to be honest. And so it's a really good comparison to make because these guys are equal enough in terms of their build, their production, and their roles on their respective teams that it makes sense to bring up the argument. But I'd rather go with JT, mostly because I think $3 million a season is a very significant part of your cap that you'd have available to you should you keep JT instead of John Tavares. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What are your opinions about JT Miller versus John Tavares, Toronto versus Vancouver? Who would you rather have on your team and why? What is your thought process behind this entire JT and JT thing? I know it's kind of confusing saying JT, John Tavares, JT Miller. I didn't want to go out there and call the guy Timothy because that's kind of a meme that I think is, sort of dead now. But either way, Canucks fans, Leafs fans, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. John Tavares or JT Miller, who would you rather have on your team? Why? And I guess we could also say, who would you rather have on your team now versus in the next few years? Because both of these guys are on the payroll for a pretty significant amount of time. John Tavares, of course, he expires much sooner, 2025. JT Miller goes on till 2030, so different time frames, but does that change the way you perceive this entire argument here? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.